Welcome back, and thanks for tuning to Reddit Cheating Stories. Let's dive into shocking cheating story. The humid summer air hung thick and heavy, the kind that made your shirt cling to your back and your thoughts sluggish. I hated it, but Maya loved it. She thrived in the heat, blooming like the vibrant hibiscus she painstakingly cultivated in our garden. I, on the other hand, preferred the crisp bite of autumn, the quiet rustle of falling leaves, a time for introspection and preparation. Maybe that difference, that fundamental incompatibility, was the crack in the foundation of our marriage, the fissure that had widened into this chasm of betrayal. It was a Tuesday. Tuesdays were my late days at the office. I was a software engineer, and Tuesdays were reserved for team meetings that dragged on, punctuated by lukewarm coffee and endless PowerPoint slides. I usually got home around 7, just in time to catch the tail end of Maya's yoga routine and the beginning of dinner preparations. That Tuesday, however, the meeting wrapped up unexpectedly early. A server crash had the entire IT department scrambling, and the meeting was abruptly adjourned so everyone could address the crisis. I decided to surprise Maya. Maybe we could grab dinner at that new Italian place she had been wanting to try, the one with the fairy lights and the promise of authentic tiramisu. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Mark's truck parked on the street. Mark was our neighbor, a friendly, if somewhat boisterous, guy who always seemed to be working on his lawn or tinkering with his truck. He and Maya got along well, often chatting over the low wooden fence that separated our yards. I didn't think much of it at the time. Mark's wife, Sarah, was out of town visiting her sister. I killed the engine and stepped out of the car, the scent of freshly cut grass lingering in the air. As I walked towards the front door, I heard muffled sounds coming from the backyard. A nervous flutter started in my chest. It was probably just Maya and Mark chatting. They were friends, after all. But the flutter persisted, growing into a full-blown panic as I rounded the corner of the house and saw them. The scene was burned into my memory, etched there with acid precision. Maya and Mark were in our backyard, beneath the shade of the old oak tree. Their embrace was not casual, not neighborly. It was intimate, passionate, a tangle of limbs and desperate kisses. The low wooden fence, the supposed barrier between our lives, lay splintered and broken on the ground. Time seemed to warp and bend. The blood roared in my ears, drowning out the chirping of the birds and the gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. My breath hitched in my throat, a silent scream trapped within my chest. I felt as though I was watching a movie, a horrifying scene playing out before my eyes, and I was powerless to stop it. They didn't see me at first. They were too lost in each other, too consumed by their illicit desire. Then, Mark pulled away slightly, and his eyes met mine. The shock on his face was almost comical, like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Maya followed his gaze, and recognition dawned in her eyes, followed by a chilling wave of something I couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't guilt, not exactly. It was more like annoyance, as if I had interrupted something important. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic thumping of my heart. I wanted to say something, to scream, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat like shards of glass. Finally, I managed to croak out, "Maya." She straightened up, smoothing down her sundress with a practiced hand. Her expression was remarkably composed, almost detached. "David," she said, her voice flat. "You're home early." The banality of the statement, the sheer normalcy of it, was like a slap in the face. Did she really think she could just brush this aside? What is going on here? I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Mark shifted uncomfortably, looking everywhere but at me. "David, look, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered, his voice cracking. "Oh, really, Mark?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because it looks exactly like my wife is cheating on me with my neighbor, right in my own backyard. So, please, enlighten me. What does it look like, then?" He flinched, unable to meet my gaze. He was a coward, a weak man who had preyed on my wife's vulnerability, or so I thought at the time. Then, Maya spoke, and her words shattered the remnants of my reality. "It's not his fault, David," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "It's your fault." The air left my lungs. "My fault? What are you talking about?" "You haven't been paying attention to me, David," she said, her eyes hardening. You're always working, always lost in your computer. You're never present. You don't see me anymore. That's ridiculous, Maya. I work hard to provide for us. I provide, she scoffed. Is that all you think I want? Just material possessions. I want connection, David. I want to feel loved, desired. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you planned a date night? When was the last time you even looked at me the way Mark does? I was stunned, speechless. This wasn't the Maya I knew, the Maya I had loved for the past 10 years. This was a stranger, a woman filled with bitterness and resentment. So, because I've been busy with work, because I haven't been showering you with enough attention, you decided to sleep with our neighbor? I asked, the words laced with disbelief. It's not that simple, David, she said, her voice rising. You've been pushing me away for years. Mark actually sees me. He listens to me. He makes me feel alive. Mark, who had been standing silently by, finally spoke up. David, I'm sorry, he mumbled. This shouldn't have happened. Sorry. I repeated, my voice rising to a shout. You're sorry. You slept with my wife. You broke my fence. You've completely destroyed my life. And all you can say is you're sorry. I wanted to hit him, to unleash all the rage and pain that was churning inside me. But I couldn't. I was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. Maya stepped between us. David, please. Don't make this worse than it already is. Worse? I asked, incredulous. How could it possibly get any worse, Maya? You've cheated on me. You've blamed me for it. You've completely humiliated me. What more could you possibly do? She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with a strange mix of anger and sadness. I don't love you anymore, David, she said softly. I haven't loved you for a long time. Those words were like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. It was one thing to suspect that our marriage was in trouble, but to hear her say those words, to have her confirm my worst fears, was devastating. I turned and walked away, blindly stumbling back towards the house. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do. All I knew was that I needed to get away, to escape the suffocating weight of betrayal and heartbreak. I packed a bag, throwing in a few clothes, my laptop, and my wallet. I didn't bother to write a note. What was there to say? I walked out of the house, got into my car, and drove. I drove for hours, not knowing where I was going, not caring. I just needed to put as much distance as possible between myself and the ruins of my former life. The next few weeks were a blur of cheap motel rooms, greasy diner food, and sleepless nights. I drifted aimlessly, haunted by the image of Maya and Mark in our backyard, their bodies intertwined, their faces flushed with desire. I replayed the scene over and over in my mind, searching for clues, for some explanation for how my life had fallen apart so completely. I called my best friend, Tom, a few days later. He was shocked and horrified by what had happened. He offered to come and find me, to help me sort things out, but I refused. I wasn't ready to face anyone, not even my closest friend. I eventually ended up in a small coastal town, drawn by the sound of the ocean and the vastness of the horizon. I found a small, run-down cottage to rent, a place that echoed my own broken state. The days were spent walking along the beach, staring out at the waves, trying to make sense of the chaos in my head. The nights were filled with nightmares and a gnawing loneliness that threatened to consume me. I started working again, remotely, taking on freelance projects to keep myself afloat. The work was a welcome distraction, a way to focus my mind on something other than Maya and Mark. But even as I coded and debugged, their faces would intrude, their betrayal a constant, dull ache in my chest. One evening, as I was sitting on the porch watching the sunset, I received a phone call from Maya. I almost didn't answer it, but curiosity got the better of me. David, she said, her voice hesitant. How are you? How do you think I am, Maya? I replied, my voice cold. My wife cheated on me, blamed me for it, and then told me she doesn't love me anymore. I'm doing great, thanks for asking. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I know I hurt you, David, she finally said. And I'm sorry. But I need you to understand. Understand what, Maya? I interrupted. Understand that you were unhappy. Understand that you felt neglected. I get it. But that doesn't excuse what you did. You could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling. We could have tried to fix things. But instead, you chose to betray me. I know, she said softly. And I'm sorry. But it's not just about you, David. It's about me too. I haven't been happy for a long time. I felt like I was suffocating, like I was living someone else's life. I needed to break free. So, you broke free by sleeping with our neighbor? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. It wasn't just about that, David, she said, her voice rising. It was about feeling alive again, about feeling desired. You made me feel invisible. And Mark made you feel visible. I asked. Is that what you're saying? He paid attention to me, David, she said. He listened to me. He made me laugh. He made me feel like I mattered. I was silent for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. So, what now, Maya? I finally asked. Are you and Mark going to live happily ever after? Are you going to build a new fence between your yard and Sarah's? It's not like that, David, she said. Mark and we're not together anymore. Really? I asked, surprised. What happened? Did he decide he actually loved his wife after all? He did, she said. And I realized that what I felt for him wasn't real. It was just a way to escape. A way to feel something other than the emptiness I felt inside. So, now you're alone? I asked. Yes, she said. I'm alone. There was another long silence. Why are you telling me all of this, Maya? I finally asked. What do you want from me? I don't know, David, she said. I needed you to understand. I needed you to know that it wasn't all your fault. I was unhappy too. I made a mistake. And I'm paying for it now. I didn't say anything for a moment. I was still angry, still hurt, but I could also hear the pain in her voice. I don't know what to say, Maya, I finally said. I need time to process all of this. I need time to heal. I understand, she said. I hope that one day, you can forgive me. I don't know if I can, Maya, I said. But I'll try. We hung up the phone, and I sat there on the porch, staring out at the darkening sky. The waves crashed against the shore, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time. The following months were a slow and painful process of healing. I started seeing a therapist, someone who could help me unpack the trauma of the betrayal and learn to trust again. I worked on myself, focusing on my physical and mental health. I started exercising, eating healthy, and meditating. I rediscovered old hobbies, like playing the guitar and painting. I also started to examine my own role in the breakdown of our marriage. Maya was right about some things. I had been working too much, neglecting her needs, and taking her for granted. I had allowed the pressures of my career to overshadow our relationship. I had stopped seeing her, really seeing her, as a person with her own desires and dreams. It wasn't an excuse for her infidelity, but it did help me understand the context of her actions. It didn't make the pain go away, but it did make it a little easier to bear. One day, I received a letter from Maya. It was a long, heartfelt apology, detailing her regrets and expressing her remorse for the pain she had caused. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but she did ask for a chance to talk, to meet face to face and try to find some closure. I hesitated for a long time before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore the letter, to pretend that Maya didn't exist. But another part of me, a smaller, more compassionate part, felt that I owed it to myself, and to her, to at least consider her request. After much deliberation, I decided to write back. I told her that I wasn't ready to meet yet, but that I was willing to communicate in writing. We started exchanging letters, slowly and tentatively, sharing our thoughts and feelings, our hopes and fears. Through those letters, I began to see Maya in a new light. I saw her vulnerability, her pain, her regret. I also saw her strength, her resilience, her determination to rebuild her life. I learned that after her affair with Mark ended, she had gone through a period of intense self-reflection. She had started seeing a therapist, just like me. She had quit her job and started pursuing her passion for art. She had reconnected with old friends and made new ones. She was, in many ways, a different person than the woman I had known. Slowly, gradually, the anger and resentment began to fade, replaced by a grudging sense of understanding and even empathy. I realized that we were both victims of our own mistakes, our own flaws, our own inability to communicate and connect on a deeper level. After several months of exchanging letters, I finally agreed to meet Maya in person. We met at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop in a town halfway between where I was living and where she was living. The meeting was awkward at first. We sat in silence, staring at each other, unsure of what to say. But as we started to talk, the tension began to ease. We talked about everything, our past, our present, our future. We talked about our regrets, our mistakes, our hopes for the future. We didn't reconcile, not in the romantic sense. But we did find a way to forgive each other, to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed us for so long. We acknowledged the pain we had caused each other, and we agreed to move forward, to build new lives, separate but not hostile. As I drove home that evening, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that I was no longer alone. I had survived the betrayal, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Years passed. I continued to live in the coastal town, working as a freelance software engineer and enjoying the solitude and beauty of the ocean. I started dating again, cautiously, learning to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of love. I even reconnected with Sarah, Mark's ex-wife. We bonded over our shared experience of betrayal, finding solace and support in each other's company. We became good friends, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. One day, I received an invitation to Maya's art exhibition. She had become a successful artist, her paintings capturing the beauty and complexity of the human spirit. The invitation was addressed to me and Sarah. I hesitated for a long time before deciding to go. Part of me was still wary of Maya, afraid of reopening old wounds. But another part of me was curious to see her work, to see how she had transformed her pain into art. Sarah encouraged me to go. "It's a chance for closure, David," she said. "A chance to see how far you've both come." So, I went. The exhibition was held in a small gallery in the city. The room was filled with people, admiring Maya's paintings. I spotted her across the room, talking to a group of people. She looked beautiful, radiant, and confident. As she turned and saw me, a flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by a warm smile. She excused herself from the group and walked towards me. "David," she said, her voice soft. "I'm so glad you came." "I'm glad too, Maya," I said. "Your paintings are beautiful." "Thank you," she said. "They're a reflection of my journey, my pain, my healing." We talked for a long time, catching up on each other's lives. She told me about her art, her travels, her new friends. I told her about my work, my hobbies, my growing relationship with Sarah. As we talked, I realized that we had both come a long way. We had both survived the betrayal, and we had both found a way to rebuild our lives, to find happiness and fulfillment in new ways. Before I left, Maya handed me a small painting. It was a landscape, a depiction of the ocean at sunset. The colors were vibrant and luminous, capturing the beauty and tranquility of the sea. "This is for you, David," she said. A reminder of the past, and a hope for the future. I took the painting, thanking her. As I walked out of the gallery, I looked back at Maya, standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by her art, her friends, her life. She smiled at me, a genuine, heartfelt smile. I smiled back, and then I turned and walked away, leaving the past behind me, embracing the future with hope and gratitude. The broken fence, the broken vows, the betrayal, the pain, it was all part of my story, a chapter that had shaped me, challenged me, and ultimately made me stronger. I had learned that forgiveness is possible, that healing is possible, that love is possible, even after the most devastating of betrayals. And as I drove home that evening, with Maya's painting on the passenger seat beside me, I knew that I was finally, truly, free. Years later, Sarah and I stood on a beach in Mexico, exchanging vows under the warm glow of the setting sun. The ceremony was small and intimate, attended by our closest friends and family. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I saw a reflection of my own journey, my own pain, my own healing. I saw a woman who had also been betrayed, who had also struggled to rebuild her life, who had also found the courage to love again. And in that moment, I knew that I had found my true soulmate, someone who understood me, accepted me, and loved me unconditionally. As we held hands and exchanged our vows, I couldn't help but think of Maya. I wondered if she was happy, if she had found love, if she had finally found peace. I knew that we would never be friends, not in the traditional sense. But I also knew that we would always be connected, bound together by the shared experience of our past. And as I looked out at the vastness of the ocean, I offered a silent prayer for her happiness, her healing, and her continued success. The waves crashed against the shore, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time. And I knew that no matter what the future held, I would always be grateful for the lessons I had learned, the pain I had endured, and the love I had found. For it was through the broken fence, the broken vows, and the betrayal that I had discovered the true meaning of forgiveness, healing, and the enduring power of the human spirit. And hey, if you love dramatic stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this lesson, because some bridges are meant to be burned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.